Hi, I'm Malcolm Bond with Cedaron Medical. I'd like to introduce you to a new feature in Connect, which presents a solution for selecting the appropriate evaluation code, which are, as of January 1, 2017, based upon the complexity of the episode of care. I'll spend a couple of minutes on each service line of physical therapy and occupational therapy to talk to you about the logic that was developed to support this new feature. In physical therapy, the new feature in real time references 4 categories in the daily charting of patient care. It references history, specifically running a tally in real time again of, for example, comorbidities in the patient history. The new feature also references a physical examination. Specifically, it tallies the number of body structures, functions, limitations, or participation restrictions that were evaluated during the exam. The new feature also references the clinical presentation by the patient with respect to stability, instability, or the unpredictable nature of the characteristics presented. And this new feature also references the clinical decision-making. Was it complex or not? Each of these categories in this new feature is weighted using the CMS methods described in the law to provide with a level of complexity, low, moderate to high. Then the Connect software takes each of those levels of complexity to arrive at an overall level of complexity and presents a suggestion for the clinician of the evaluation code, low, moderate, or high. The complexity algorithm inside this new feature in Connect uses the lowest common denominator from each of the categories of daily charting. The complexity software feature in Connect is a real-time query of stock, general release data forms, and the custom data forms that were built on site. Again, in the categories of charting, history, physical examination, clinical presentation, and clinical decision-making. The end result of this new software logic is a new tab at the bottom of the patient chart called Complexity. The tab is dynamic with respect to the color and the suggested level of complexity for the episode of care. The Complexity tab you can think of as in terms of a bucket that seamlessly receives and collates all of the observations in those 4 categories of daily charting. Again, the logic was based upon the law from Medicare, again, that became active 1 January 2017, and presents the clinician with a suggestion of the appropriate level of complexity, therefore the code, the evaluation code to use. When you click on this new Complexity tab, you get a visual of all of the elements of those 4 categories of daily charting that are pertinent to driving the selection of the evaluation code. It's separated into those 4 blocks: history, physical exams, tests and measures, functional outcome measures, and clinical presentation. Each of the pertinent observations that will add to the complexity of the episode of care is presented as a checkbox. So the clinician can make a clinical decision and uncheck that data field as not appropriate for this particular episode of care. Furthermore, if the clinician determines that, for example, a functional outcomes measure is driving an inappropriate level of complexity for the case, you can override that by using the radio buttons beneath that block. The general suggestion for complexity for the episode of care can also be overridden. You don't have to accept it. On the far right-hand corner are 3 buttons presented, low, moderate, and high. The clinician can just elect to use those 3 buttons to make the selection of the evaluation code. In the other service line of occupational therapy, the software runs remarkably similar to physical therapy. In this case, there are 3 categories of observations in daily charting that Connect uses to drive a suggestion for the evaluation code. With respect to history, the Connect feature references occupational profile and the medical history of the patient. In the physical examination part, we're referencing the occupational performance deficits. And lastly, the category of decision making. How much modification was necessary during the assessments by the clinician. In the same fashion, presenting the summation or the least common denominator for each of those categories presents the level of complexity of the case as a whole and makes the suggestion low, moderate, or high. And as I alluded to just a moment ago, remarkably similar to physical therapy, this new feature uses the lowest common denominator of each of the observation categories that are being charted. Throughout this new feature are question mark icons, and when you click on those, you gain access directly to the law that can be used to explain in real time by the clinician what the significance or what the definition is of low, moderate, and high complexity. All right, with that short introduction, I invite you to go online to look for more information on this new feature from Cedaron that hopefully does successfully help you navigate through the selection of the 1 January 2017 evaluation codes from Medicare. Thank you for your time. Bye.